And now, for the first time ever, Virtua Fighter has hit Steam. No, the Virtua Fighter 2 Genesis release doesn't count, because Virtua Fighter 5 Revo launches on Steam this week with a series of firsts. It's the first in the series with rollback netcode. It's the first to feature gameplay changes in over a decade, and the first game in the series to feature 4K textures. That's enough of the preamble. I'm Dan, the Mega Driver of the Sega guys, and let's see if the 3D fighting king truly has returned. Virtua Fighter 5 Revo launched around 2 PM on the 27th of January on Steam. It seems we were a little bit delayed, so that Takanobu Mitsuyoshi could finish singing his song on live stream, which, to be honest, I'm not going to argue with that because I love the guy. But the minute the game became available, I was there, logging in for some classic Virtua Fighter action. It's worth noting at this point that we did not receive a review code from Sega themselves. This purchase was funded from ourselves here at the Sega guys, and of course we got the 30th anniversary bundle, which we will get into. Virtua Fighter 5 is a classic, the original released in 2006 to critical acclaim. It would see a number of updates on console and in arcades all the way up until 2012. Then, after the release of Final Showdown on PS3 and Xbox 360, itself a standalone digital only release which lost the awesome quest mode from the original Virtua Fighter 5, everything went a bit quiet. Then, in 2021, Yoga Gotoku created Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown exclusively for the Sony PlayStation 4. This featured completely remade visuals but identical gameplay to Final Showdown. Now, Sega, Yoga Gotoku and AM2 have launched a three-pronged assault. In the arcades, there's Virtua Fighter 5 Esports 2.0. On PS4, it's Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown, and now on PC, it's Virtua Fighter 5 Revo. All three games feature the same updated and rebalanced gameplay. The Ultimate Showdown update arrived on PS4 late last year, but with Revo promising the best competitive environment ever for the series, does it actually deliver? Revo starts with this new-ish intro sequence. It's basically the Ultimate Showdown one, but at a higher quality, and with the excellent new Burning Soul song performed by the legendary Takanobu Mitsuyoshi. From there, you get into a menu that is identical to the one in Ultimate Showdown. Sure, it looks a little bit sharper in Revo, but it is functionally and design-wise exactly the same. What I did love when I was booting up, after picking a ranked match, I got a game almost instantly. You're seeing right now how quickly I got into my first fight. This was a breath of fresh air given how long it has taken in past Virtua Fighter games to get matches, including Revo's beta itself. First impressions, like my ones on the beta, are great. The game plays fantastically. It's fast and fluid in all the ways that Virtua Fighter should be. Latency in this first match seemed very low, and the game looked extremely sharp. Those 4K textures really making a difference in terms of graphical pop. But when you dig deeper, how much of an upgrade really is it? Well, I decided to do something of a three-way comparison between Revo, Ultimate Showdown and Final Showdown, and the results are interesting. What's well known at this point is that Ultimate Showdown was something of a redesign of Final Showdown. Some stages, as was the case in previous updates of Virtua Fighter 5, are set at different times of day, with different decor. Some, however, are directly comparable. Let's get the obvious out of the way first. Revo is easily the sharpest looking version of Virtua Fighter 5 yet, and playing on a 2K or 4K display with HDR really demonstrates a lift in colour and clarity. But that's not the whole story. In some cases, textures have been entirely replaced. Not as drastically as the change from vanilla Virtua Fighter 5 to Final Showdown or from the latter to Ultimate, but the changes are there. For example, Wolf Stage has a real glow to the cottage and surroundings that made it feel real. This was somewhat lost in Ultimate, which seemed to downgrade the metal texture on the floor. Revo goes even further, recolouring the helicopter sign to the point you can no longer make it out. And then you have Jackie Stage, which has a gritty city feel in Final Showdown, and that got jazzed up in Ultimate. In Revo, not only does everything look cleaner, but you get these cool reflections effects in the stage too. However, the blue circle in the centre of the stage is now missing. Ultimately, R.E.V.O looks lovely, and during gameplay at surface level it's immediately visually appealing because of how sharp and clean it is. However, at a design level it's more of a mixed bag. Stages don't quite have the same character that they did in Final Showdown in my opinion. Final Showdown as it is a heavily stylised game, more so than any other in the series. Ultimate made it look a bit plasticky by comparison, despite being cleaner, and R.E.V.O improves in some areas while losing detail in others. This is just a sample of the comparisons I made, and there's more than enough here for a completely separate video if anyone was interested. Of course, one stage has changed completely, which is R.E.V.O stage, swapping out the ruins and the falling snow featured in Final Showdown for an industrial theme stage which is based on R.E.V.O's Virtua Fighter 4 arena, albeit without the moving platform, which serves as a nice segue from visuals being a mixed bag to the game and content. R.E.V.O has been playable in every single Virtua Fighter game, including Final Showdown, but that wasn't the case in Ultimate, and remains the case in R.E.V.O. I get it, R.E.V.O is a broken boss character, and having her playable online would skew the whole scene. But Final Showdown got around this by limiting her to offline versus mode. Why doesn't R.E.V.O do the same? It feels like arbitrarily limiting the content. And speaking of which, just like Ultimate, a lot of the customization from Final is locked behind a paywall, and Final was already downgraded from the console port of the original Virtua Fighter 5. Fortunately, for those that have bought the 30th Anniversary Edition, you get everything in one bundle, with the exception of the Tekken 7 tie-in. That the Tekken 7 icon remains in the menu, despite the fact that Tekken 8 has been out for over a year, makes this all feel a bit sloppy and dated. Still, customization options here are plentiful, so long as you've been willing to pony up the dough. I spent quite a while decking out characters with bits and bobs to make them mine, with Jackie looking similar to the freak that I created on Virtua Fighter 5 Vanilla way back in 2007. You can also use skins based on the original Virtua Fighter game. I say based on because the difference in articulation means the blocky fighters do not look quite like their 1993 counterparts, Jackie for example with this weird long neck. And that's before you consider that 9 of the 17 fighters in this game weren't in the original Virtua Fighter release. Sadly, you can't use these skins or your customised character in arcade mode for some weird reason, but you can take your freaks online to potentially scare your foes. Outside of customization, you can choose your soundtrack from all past VF titles, including Virtua Fighter Kids. You can even use the Final Showdown soundtrack if you wish, depending on how you feel about the updated Ultimate soundtrack. Like the truly cultured man that I am, I opted for the Virtua Fighter 2 soundtrack. Whether this is worth the price of the 30th anniversary version is quite hard to say. At £40 I would say absolutely not, especially with the Tekken pack still sold separately. At the current launch price, with the 20% off taking it to £32? Possibly. Personally, the £27 price on CD keys was just right for me. So look, I've talked about the fluff, the look, the content, and before I get into the gameplay, I'll just touch on the last bit of window dressing, which is the soundtrack. I love the Ultimate Showdown soundtrack, really I do. The high energy music really tracks well with the fast paced gameplay and everything just fits. Is it better than the original? That's hard to say, but it is a banger soundtrack, and those extra music selections only add to the audio majesty of this game.
Excellent!
So, onto the gameplay then. The big change in R.E.V.O was rollback netcode. In the limited sessions that I had on the beta, it seemed like a revelation. Everything performed spectacularly. Playing this game on release, however, I experienced some hiccups. For example, this match here with Wolf was hit with several pauses and bouncer slowdown, despite what the game deemed to be a strong connection. There were a few matches where the game seemed fine, but would then slow to a crawl for a few seconds. There's no other way to describe it aside from it being disappointing, especially after the beta. Hopefully, these are just early release related issues, but I would have hoped that this would have been sorted in the beta, or at least if it wasn't, that they'd have had another beta before the full release, because this, and the aforementioned quibbles on content, have soured some gamers on this release. Which is a shame, because this is arguably the best that Virtua Fighter has played for over 20 years. There will be, of course, split opinions over the balance changes, and to me what seems a renewed focus on floor juggling does grate a little because that's not how I play, but the actual combat is so slick, fast and engrossing. Virtua Fighter feels exciting, the fights explode at breakneck speed, and I always felt my heart in my throat when things got dicey. There is literally nothing else quite like it, not even Dead or Alive, and especially not Tekken. The game plays like a breath of fresh air, and when it works perfectly, it's absolutely phenomenal and remains one of the best fighting games ever made at its core. So with that said, there's really not much else to say about a game that is 20 years old next year. It's one of the all-time greats, and R.E.V.O, despite some disappointments, is a great way to play it. Should you get R.E.V.O? In my opinion, yes. Though that yes comes with a but. If you own the Xbox 360 version, which is playable on all modern Xbox consoles, and you don't play online, you may be perfectly happy there. In fact, if you own a Yakuza game with Final Showdown in it, and you don't want to play online, the reasons to upgrade aren't overly compelling. If you own Ultimate Showdown on the PlayStation 4, which has now been updated to version 2.0 to include all the balance changes that you see here, R.E.V.O really isn't the quantum leap required to justify purchase of the game either. However, if you don't own any version of Final or Ultimate Showdown, you just want to play online, or if you're just a die-hard series fan like us, then yes, you should absolutely get R.E.V.O as soon as possible. At the end of the day, we have a dedicated Virtua Fighter game on Steam, and it is excellent. The price of admission is reasonable, the visuals are nice despite some strange design decisions, the soundtrack is absolutely banging, and the online is great despite the occasional issue, and the gameplay remains best in class. In an ideal world, this would be available on all modern platforms, or at least offer crossplay with arcade gamers and PS4 owners, and maybe we'll see R.E.V.O on Xbox and PS5 down the line. But as it is, Virtua Fighter 5 R.E.V.O on Steam is a great way to play this classic. If you have played it, we'd love to hear from you in the comments below or on the Sega Guys Discord. And if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and a subscribe, as that really helps the channel. But that's all for now. Until next time, we will see you on the Sega side.
I got no time for you.